It is my pleasure to bring in a good friend of mine, somebody who's interviewed me before. We have seen each other throughout the last, I don't know how many years since you started Hey Amarillo.
7.
7. Jason Boyett joining me today. There's a lot that I wanted to talk about with Jason. In fact, we're just finishing up our cheeseburgers. I invited him in for lunch. We had Tank's Burgers out in the parking lot, which was delicious.
I hope you serve burgers to every guest.
Just you.
Okay.
True story. Just you, Jason. There's so much that I want to tackle in the next 30 minutes. First of all, what has life been like without Hey Amarillo? You did that for so many years. What's it been like?
People ask me if I've found something to fill the space.
You're like
and
Brick
I'm just
Elm.
like I had it waiting to go. It's like when you have a bucket under a waterfall and then you empty out the bucket and put it back under the waterfall, it's going to fill up again. So it's been nice not having, I think, the mental weight of always having to think, okay, do I have a show ready to go next Monday? Yeah. If not, who can I book? Do I have enough guests booked to allow me to go on vacation in 2 months? You know, you're just always thinking of the schedule. And it's not just who can I interview, but will it be a good interview? Yeah. Because not everybody's a great interview. Surely you know this at this point.
Yes.
And so, like, I think the mental burden of it is something that I don't miss. Yeah. But, like, I miss having people come over to my house to sit in my studio and just talking to me for 45 minutes about their lives. Like, I've met so many cool people that way that I would not have met otherwise. Having the podcast just gives me a reason to say, hey, I want you to come to my house and tell me your story.
Come hang out.
Yeah, exactly. And it adds a formality to it, but really for somebody who works at home, who gets out of my office just a few times a week, like, it was really nice just to have that opportunity to meet people.
Well, I certainly enjoyed it, and I'm glad that it is continuing on. I think the people of our area love that podcast, that program, and so I'm glad that even though you stepped away from it in a perfect Seinfeld moment, which we've talked about in the past, the two of us, knowing when to leave on a high note.
Leave before everybody wants you to leave.
Yeah, it's like when in the one episode where leaving on a high note, where George would say a joke. If somebody laughed, he's like, all right, I'm out.
And then walk out.
And then just walk out.
Yeah.
You've walked out. You've walked into the next thing, which has always been a thing for you. You and Michelle have worked on Brick Elm for a while, and it's just, I think it's such a great publication, which we're going to dive into here in just a bit. So it has been, I have to tell you, so since I have this, I started this Let's Talk About It thing for myhighplains.com, and which will eventually be on another platform. It's the hardest thing. And I did not understand scheduling people, of getting everybody lined up and being ready to go. I had no idea that would be so stressful.
It is, people are busy. Mm-hmm. You know, the people who are going to have the most dynamic stories to tell are people that have a lot of things happening in their lives. And you're a busy person too. And so anytime you're trying to align two busy people, like, it's hard to find that window. Yeah. And it's hard to find that window just when you know you need an uninterrupted 30 or 45 minutes or whatever the length is going to be, because nobody has that time. You know, our phones are going to be going off like while we're talking. Yeah.
And we both have them. I'm going to flip mine over right now.
Yeah, I mean,
face down and just.
That's one of the things I learned to do. Like, before every conversation started with a guest in my studio, I would ask, have you silenced your phone? If not, would you please? Yeah. I would prefer it that you not be looking at it while we're talking, because you're going to be distracted by it. I'm going to be distracted by it. That's why nobody talks about themselves for 45 minutes in general, but especially because we both have this constant feed of communication coming at us through our phones, and we're so easily distractible. And so I think that's a little bit of the magic of a conversation like this, of a conversation like a podcast, is just getting away from those distractions and having a talking to another person about things you care about. Like, it's just so rare, except in this sort of media environment.
But it feels so good. Like, when I came in to do Hey Amarillo within this past year, just to be able to sit down and talk and not worry about a time constraint, and you just sit down and you're working through it. So I want to tell you, I admire all the work that you did, and I had no idea how much of a burden that would be, because there are so many people that you want to interview, but you're right, it's hard. Yeah. I bribed you with cheeseburgers today.
I mean, I'll do a lot for a cheeseburger. This is easy. It's easy not to be in charge of the direction of this conversation, to just let you do it. And that's a burden itself. Like, people don't realize it's easy to have a conversation if you're asking somebody to talk about themselves, but like, you've got to think about, where's this conversation going to go? When will I know when it's over? How will I steer it towards the ending? What if we don't cover the things I want to cover? Like, it's all on you and me. I'm just asking, or I'm just answering questions.
Like, I get whatever you throw at me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I learned this from, I believe it was Dr. Trudy Hansen at WT, one of the professors there, and I think it was an interviewing class. The best interviewers are always the best listeners. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the questions. It is just being able to sit there and listen to the story and get wrapped up in it. And still, I think when you first start out, you're like, well, I've got to be thinking of my next question, as opposed to having, and when I go into my interviews, most of the time, unless it's a political candidate that I'm trying to be very fair with all of them, I write down my questions so that way I can be fair. When I'm interviewing a friend, I let the conversation go organically. I know where I want it to go in places to make those stops. But if I pre-plan it, then it's not as fun, and it's not as organic. So,
well, and I had this conversation with Skylar Gallop, who's taking over the podcast, and she comes from broadcast news. She was in the industry. She knows how to do an interview. But she was asking me, like, what are your tips for doing this? And one of the things I told her was, sometimes the best question is just not to ask a question and to just sit silently and make eye contact with the person once they've stopped talking, because they will fill that silence. Mm-hmm. Nobody likes it. And so if you don't have a question, you can just stare at your guest for a little bit, and they'll start talking again. And that's the listening part, that you don't always have to have a question to ask. Sometimes not even asking that question is enough prompt to get people to continue talking.
Oh, that's so good and so incredibly true. All right, let's go back to the origin story of, first off, you went to Tascosa, you grew up here. You've been a part of the community in some fashion, form, or another, whether it's writing or helping out. You've helped out with commercials. What all have you done?
I've had a weird career. It still is kind of weird, because I still do a lot of things. But I went to Amarillo College and got a journalism degree, and went to WT and finished up with an English major. And then I went into the advertising industry, and I worked in advertising for several years, built up I worked at what used to be Trafton Printing. It's then became Synveo, now it's Color Art. But it had this marketing side that was so fast-paced, was right in the middle of the transition from like manually creating plates for printing and digital desktop publishing. So it was during a really intense period, and then I just had so much work that I was thrown into. I was a writer and a designer. I was writing and designing full magazines for United Supermarkets. As like a 27-year-old, I was writing and designing newsletters for Park Central. I was working on really high net worth stuff for other clients, and so I just did everything. And then I look back at how I learned to do stuff really fast, how to communicate really clearly, how design and words needed to work together, because I wasn't relying on a writer to write the headlines. I was writing them myself, but then I was also designing them. It just prepared me for like everything I do today. And I thought, oh, this is such a sweatshop. But like all of my career goes back to those days, because I'm still using all those tools, how to work fast, how to work efficient, how to combine all those different things together. Now I'm back, and I'm making a magazine again. And so it was one of those early jobs that you're thrust into in your 20s and you're not quite prepared for, and then you figure out how to do it, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And so some of the clients I have now as a freelance writer were clients I was introduced to in 2002, because they were doing something at that company. And so, yeah, those little weird decisions and relationships, like all that stuff just kind of ripples throughout your career. in surprising ways. And so I, like you mentioned writing commercials. Like I did work for Amarillo National Bank for a long time. Concepted a lot of their TV commercials, wrote most of the posters and things that you'd see. I mean, the welcome mats in every bank that have some clever little saying, like I wrote 100 of those, and the 30 best ones are on display throughout Amarillo still. And so just had the opportunity to do a lot of creative writing, a lot of copywriting, marketing kind of stuff for a long time.
You ever walk in to make a deposit or withdraw or whatever, and you walk by and you're like, I did that.
Sometimes I walk in and I'm like, I didn't think they were going to take that one, but I'm glad they did, because some of the most fun stuff I've done for the bank was just like, they'll never go for this.
Give me an idea of one that you didn't think that they would take that they did.
Boring as hell, that TV commercial.
You did that?
I wrote that as a joke. So we had gone through about, I don't know, 15 or 20 scripts that we wanted to use, that year for the bank for their Super Bowl spot. Some of them were really good. Some of them I put a lot of time into. And finally, we're just like, I don't know, we're having a discussion about banking. The best banks need to be like really boring. So I was like, all right. And I literally wrote that in 10 or 15 minutes, sent it to them. And I thought, here's an option. They'll laugh this one, out because it's so stupid. And they loved it. And then Wilson Lemieux turned it into the spot that he turned it into. It kind of went viral because banks should not be talking about how boring they are. And it was so much fun. And I could say, I wrote this in 15 minutes. But I wrote it in 15 minutes after having spent 40 hours working up to that point. Yeah. And so that's kind of how creativity works. Yeah. You got to earn it. You got to earn those moments of magic.
A lot of no's, or that didn't work, and then lo and behold, that's what you did. What a collaboration too, because that was a great ad, and Wilson you and I both adore that guy's work.
It's pretty early in his career.
Yeah.
Like that kind of cemented his status as here's somebody who's doing really cool work, because he took 80 words on a Word document and turned it into something really special. Yeah, and that's always fun to see.
He's pretty good at that. So what are you, out of all the things that you've done, this is going to be hard, but what are you most proud
of? I am proud of my 12 Major World Religions book, which I published in 2016. Probably the book that best fits me in terms of mindset and philosophy and what I want to do as a writer, because it's educational. It exposes people to different ideas in a clear way. Also, the hardest project I've ever been a part of. I probably won't do another book like that because it was so tough. The podcast, one of those ideas I had during a road trip, and I thought somebody should do a local podcast where we interview local people and just ask them talk about themselves. And I thought somebody else should do that for about 4 months before I realized it should be me. And I started it as an experiment, and obviously, 7 years and 400 episodes later, like it was a thing. And so I'm proud of that. Like I feel good when I use the things I'm naturally good at to create something that feels significant. And saying it feels significant, I don't want that to come across as an egotistical way. It's like a body of work. That I had an idea, and because of the execution of that idea, I've produced 450 hours of Amarillo people telling their stories that will be there forever. Like, I'm proud of that. I've already had discussions with Panhandle Plains Historical Museum. That's going to be part of their permanent collection once there's a museum you can visit. But the podcast is going to be something that hopefully people in 50 or 60 years will still have access to, because so much of the storytelling is like what museums are about. It's a snapshot of this moment in history. The pandemic, like all of the stuff that we were able to do during that to just talk to people. And so creating that digital record is something I'm proud about. Yeah. It feels good to have done that. Now, it was sometimes a grind in the middle of doing it, but I found that once you finish up a really cool project and you can say, oh, that's something I made, like I'm proud of those things.
And I think it came around at the perfect time, where we were as a people, as society, where some of the stuff that we were going through. I thought it came because we had some time, we had some extra time to listen.
Well, and I had it had been going for 3 years before the pandemic, 2.5 years.
I feel like it just took off.
And so people knew enough about it, and then I was able to make a pivot. And that 2020, 2021, so many thousands of people were listening to that every month. I was like, oh, what have I done here? I'm proud of the magazine. I never thought that I would have created a magazine.
It's so good.
I pitched one to the Amarillo Globe News in about 2003. I said, Amarillo needs a city magazine. I was feeling really confident because I'd done, the United Supermarkets magazine and things like that. I was like, I could do this for the city.
Look at me, I can do this.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing back then, and obviously they didn't do it, but they did introduce one a little bit later. I got involved with Amarillo Magazine for a while. And once that started fading away, I thought Amarillo needed to have something like what we'd been involved with. And so having created a publication from scratch and suddenly we make it happen every 2 months I feel like it's the kind of storytelling that a city needs to have, because it needs to have a robust news community. And that's not what we do. It also needs that lifestyle component that tells people, here's where to go eat. Here are the nonprofits that are doing cool things. Here are the people you need to know about. Here are the businesses maybe you haven't heard about. It's that component that I think makes for a healthy culture. And the fact that we've been able to figure out how to do it and are still doing it, almost 4.5 years later, I feel good about that too.
I would say this whether you were in the room or not. It is one of my favorite magazines, and we always have it at the house. And it's great when people come in because I think it's a perfect snapshot of our little world that we live in here. The articles are just so good. The history of the Toot and Totem thing that you guys had last month, and I know we're on the cusp, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. It's just such a great article, and you guys have some phenomenal collaborators that join you, and some other friends of ours that kind of get involved with that. So keep that up. That's wonderful. I want to circle back real quick before we jump into my next subject. You talked about this book. Tell me about when you talked about the book that you wrote. What was it that made you do that? I've known that's kind of been I don't know if hobby is the right word or not, but I know it's something you've been passionate about. So let's talk about the book, the name of the book, where we can find it, and kind of the motivation behind putting that together.
Well, if you go to Amazon and you search my name, you'll find about a dozen books that have my name on it. You will not find another half dozen books that I wrote that were for somebody else because I ghost wrote them. Yeah. And I'm not attached to those in any way. But this one, having had the opportunity to write this, I've always had a fascination with religion, which is helpful, when you're brought up in a church environment and you're just a weird kid who gets into things. And one of those things was religion. I was reading, I was a Baptist kid, and I was reading the Desert Church Fathers of the Catholic Church when I was 17. I was like, these weirdos had all these ideas. And so I was not just like your typical youth group kid. I was your typical youth group kid who also could have a conversation with a seminary professor, because that was what I was interested in. And so because of that, I've always had sort of this explainer mindset, where I want you to understand the faith that you belong to. I want you to know what the denominational history is of the church you attend. I want you to understand why you are a Protestant and not a Catholic, and because it dates back to Martin Luther and all these things that happened 500 years ago. I want people to know why they are dedicating their lives to this system that will define every part of their lives. Because I think most people don't. Yeah. We just are born into a religious tradition, or somebody invites us to church and we think it's cool and we start going. And I feel like you ought to know something about it before you give your whole life to it. And so I've always sort of had that mindset, not just about Christianity, but about every world religion. And so most of the books I wrote have this explainer mindset to it. This is a thing, it's important in our culture, I want you to understand it better. And so the World Religions book was an opportunity to write what is sort of think of it as an introductory survey course in college to world religions, where you're going to spend a little bit of time with Islam, you're going to spend a little bit of time with Hinduism, a little bit with Buddhism. You're not going to go super deep into it, but you're going to be able to understand, oh, that's what they're talking about. Oh, that's why they dress that way. This is why they have all these little gold statues. This is why, certain Christians say one thing and other Christians say another thing. And so it is like 300 plus pages about 12 of the most influential world religions. Required a whole lot of research on my part, and I loved it. It was so much fun.
I bet your youth pastor loved you. Like you're I see you as the kid asking all of the questions where everybody goes, what did he just say? What did he ask?
Loved and hated, probably.
Well, because you're so inquisitive and you love to learn. I could see that of just having a young Jason Boyett asking some really.
I was a real rule follower, and I was the kid that, like, if you want something to happen, you could ask me to do it, and I would make it happen. But yeah, I would have a lot of interesting questions I would ask, and I had a lot of really interesting questions that I did not ask because I thought, oh, I can't ask that one. They won't like that question.
I
swallow a lot of those questions.
I love questions. The hard ones, I love, and the hardest ones come from my own kids, right? Like when you become a parent, all of a sudden, that's one thing Michelle and I said, and I'm sure that you and your wife were the same.
I remember the first.
If you ask me a question, we're gonna go into it. I'm not gonna be like, you're not old. If you ask me a question, you deserve an answer and you deserve the truth.
Look, my first moment of religious uncertainty was when I was about 5 years old, and I was really into dinosaurs. I knew everything about dinosaurs. I knew more than my parents about dinosaurs. I remember at the kitchen table one time, I asked my mom and dad why the dinosaurs were not in the story of the Garden of Eden. Because I knew they were there before any animals. There were animals, but there were no velociraptors or whatever. And I remember being dissatisfied with their answer at age 5 and thinking,
how do I get there?
They don't know everything. I don't know if I agree with that. And that's been part of the way that I've thought since I was really young.
There is, I don't know if you feel the same way, but there is, as a parent, there was a freeing thing when I answered my kids one time and I said, I don't know, but let's find out. Mm-hmm. Like there's this idea that we always have to know the answer to something, right? And then we put on this thing, and next thing you know, we're talking out the side of our face. We don't know what we're talking about. And so it's okay to not know the answer to a question and say, hey, let's get together. Let's figure this out. And we've had some hard ones. We have had some hard discussions, but it's been good. Okay, so you can get that book. You can check that out at Amazon, and you can also check out the latest edition of Brick Elm. So it's funny, we're recording this a little bit early because one of those things about scheduling, I was going on vacation, and I know that you've been working on a new release for Brick Elm. I was going to say podcast because I can't get that out of my head.
A new episode.
We've got a new episode of the magazine.
Yeah, I still say that.
All right. So I'm excited about this release because Jason and I are both passionate about a good cheeseburger. We share that, and we have a lot in common, but we share our love for cheeseburgers. So this next Brick Elm magazine edition, you're going through the burgers of Amarillo.
Yeah, so every July, August, we do a food issue. And we've done food trucks, brunch. Last year was frozen treats, ice cream. This year it's burgers. And that feels pretty obvious. I mean, there's a lot of great burger places in Amarillo. But when something feels obvious, like that's when we know, okay, we need to do this, because you can take somebody like you or me who will say, I know all the great cheeseburgers. I've eaten it everywhere. And like, you're going to find a place that you have absolutely never been to. Yeah. You have never tried that burger. You didn't know it existed. And so it's one of these pieces, in the industry they call it service journalism, where we just want to educate you and say, if you love burgers, you probably love about 3 burgers in Amarillo. We're going to give you 12. No, actually, we're going to give you 48. You know, and we're going to show you, here's where you go if you want to try the spiciest burger in town. Here's where you go if you want to try the most creative burger in town. Here's where you go if you want a classic cheeseburger that tastes like nostalgia. I mean, that's what it is. And so we worked really hard to identify as many places as we could think of that served burgers, period. And then we kind of put them into categories and decided, okay, this is the one we want to photograph. We want to tell the story of this burger in this restaurant. And so we call it A Dozen to Devour. That's the title of the feature. And we've got some epic photo shoots of burgers that are amazing, and we tell the story behind it.
Jason sends me a picture. I've got my phone out. He sends me this picture, and it's a picture of one of my favorite burgers. This was during that photo shoot, and immediately I was like, okay, now I've got to go have a burger. Yeah. It was the power of advertising work. So how many burgers did you eat, and what was the time frame?
So I didn't eat a full burger anywhere. We shot 12 burgers over 3 days.
I love cheeseburgers, but that's a lot.
Yeah, and when we shoot it, like, the restaurant knows we're coming. Mm-hmm. We ask them to prepare something specific. We go in there with camera crew, take photos, and then I have to write about it, so I'm going to try every one.
Yeah, you got to.
But yeah, you can't
It's R&D.
It's, research and development, but between 1 and 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, you should not eat 3 hamburgers.
Oh, no.
And so it was a bite of each one. The one that I ate the most of, and this is the one I texted the photo of to you because it was at the Golden Light. Yeah. And everyone, they're like, well, do you want to take this burger when you're done? I was like, sure, take it. And I ate that one in the car while driving to the next restaurant because I couldn't say no to just devouring a Golden Light burger.
Yeah, Angela and all her people over there do such a great job. Okay, so when I put out something about hamburgers recently, and everybody they're very strong opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that,
this will generate discussion regardless of where you stand.
That I feel in Thai food, any kind of Asian food here in Amarillo. If I say, hey, my favorite place, and then I'll have somebody go, oh no, you got to try this place or you got to try this place. So
guaranteed to start a fight.
100%. And then you have different, like I'm more of a Golden Light guy. What's the other really popular place here in town that's been on shows?
Coyote Bluff.
Coyote Bluff. Yep. Like theirs, but I'm more of I like mine, my patty a little bit thinner, I guess. I don't know.
A smash burger.
Smash burger, more or less. Yes. Yeah, Angela told me that because
upside down.
Her, she said you probably don't know this, but next time you go in, we build our burgers backwards. Yep. And it blew my mind.
And there's not a reason why. I asked her that because I said, you build yours upside down. The patty's on the top. Why do you do that? She was like, that's just the way we've always done it. Like, that's the answer. And at the Golden Light, that's good enough.
Right. Like, why would Angela want to change anything that's been happening since the, 40s?
She 50s? Says the secret sauce of her burgers is not any of the ingredients. It's the grill top that 100%. They cook on.
Yeah.
And so, you just don't change the tradition.
I mean, it's caked with flavor, and I am there for it.
You could put a cake on it; it would taste like a burger.
Okay, did you know? So I talked to her the other day, and I've gone in there, Jason, since I was in my 20s. There's an item that's not on the menu that you can order, and it's trash fries.
Okay.
And so they deep fry onions and jalapenos with your fry order. So she tells me this, and again, I blew my mind. I'm like, okay, I've now got to go in and try this. Okay, so
secret menu item. You order it, and everybody goes, "Oh, this guy knows."
He knows.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, but now I know. I can't wait to do it. But she did ask me this. She said, if you come in and we're busy, don't order it because it just takes a little bit longer. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll either get there early or get there late, but we'll figure this out. So you went to 12 places. What's one of the 12 that maybe most people don't know?
Okay, this
I won't go into all of them because I want to save that for the magazine. I want you to go and I want you to buy the magazine.
I'm glad you mentioned or asked this question. So we wanted to include the spiciest burger in Amarillo.
Okay.
And if I say that, I bet you're already thinking about the burger from hell at Coyote Bluff.
That's what most people would think.
It's the most famous one.
Right.
All the TV food shows, they want to come try it. It has a reputation outside the city. We thought that seemed too obvious.
Right.
We want to introduce you to new things. And so we found a relatively new restaurant. It's called Charlie's Burgers and Brews. It's over at 45th and Georgia. It has a spicy burger that I believe is many times spicier than the burger from hell.
Many times.
He set out to one-up that burger just because it was famous. And we walk in. He knew we were coming. He didn't know what we wanted. So we walk in, and we said, we would like to try this burger. It's like electricity fired through that entire restaurant. All the staff snapped to attention. Guys in the back start putting on masks and goggles to cook it. I had to sign a waiver. I had to wear plastic gloves. And only 11 people have finished it in the 2 years that this restaurant has existed. It is...
Yeah, Caden just asked what's in it.
Caden wants to know. So there is it has pepper jack cheese and jalapenos on it, which you don't taste at all. Like, those might as well not exist. It's made with a Carolina Reaper pepper-based sauce called Death Sauce, which just covers the burger.
I just got an ulcer. Just hearing about it.
You just wait. The sauce is everywhere. It is mixed into the patty, so it is actually cooked with this sauce. It's inescapable.
In every bite.
I could take probably the smallest bite of a burger that you would imagine you can take and still understand that it's a burger, and tasted nothing but lava. Like, it is the spiciest thing I've ever put in my mouth.
What's it called? The burger?
The burger.
Okay.
And it, I can't speak to its flavor as a burger, but I can tell you I tasted it for the next several hours.
When did you?
I think so. And it is not like, and Charlie will talk about it this way. He doesn't have any idea that you're going to finish the burger or enjoy the burger. He wanted to create an experience and something that, from a marketing perspective, would draw people in. Like, if you like spicy stuff, you have to try this now. Like, you have to try it. And it's the story I talk about from this burger quest we did. I talk about that burger and how, what the experience was like of just trying to take a bite of it.
Caden, I don't know about you. That sounds terrifying to me.
It kind of is.
It kind of works though, right? Because now I want to go in. I want to just
go try it.
I'm not gonna. I can't try it. I have so many stomach issues.
Here's what Charlie did.
There you go.
Here's what Charlie did while they were cooking it. He brought out a little cup of the sauce, and he said, the burger is just covered in this sauce, so you might want to take a little taste of it. And so I took a fork, and this is what he told me to do. I took a fork, and I dipped one tine in the sauce. And so it was like a pinhead drop of sauce, and I put it in my mouth, and it just blossoms. Like my business partner, Michelle McCaffrey, said, I turned red from that tiny bit of sauce. It brought all the blood into my face. Burger is drenched in it, so it is a dining experience.
And this is on the corner of 45th and Georgia. I'm trying to think.
Boots and Jeans used to be there a long time ago, back in the 1980s.
Okay. Is it back behind the Toot Totem, or is it on the other corner?
It's on the other side of the Toot Totem. There's a bunch of car dealerships, on that on the north side of that intersection. But there's like a little shopping center. It's a real unassuming place, but we went in. There were 5 or 6 people eating there. The food was amazing, other than that burger. But like that's a story. People need to know that exists.
I cannot wait to read this, and it comes out with the first week of July.
Yeah, early July.
This is about, I think, Caden, we're probably going to roll this out. We're recording this, so this will be the first week of July, so this will be at the time. So you can now go get You can go get the magazine and you can go get this burger.
I sat down at that table and
Yes, yeah, I'm not going to touch it.
I mean, we photographed the burger. Everybody watched me take the tiniest little bite possible of it. And after it was over, I looked at Charlie and I said, the way I write about this place, people are going to read the magazine and they're going to want to come here and try this thing because this is such a unique experience. You know, you have 11 burgers. It's 11 burgers. But like that one I remember.
Man. Okay.
And I get to do that. It's like, you know, it's like field trips. I just get to go try all these things, you know, for the purpose of journalism, making a magazine out of it. That's what's fun.
It's like I said, it's R&D. You're just doing some research and development on what's happening, some investigative reporting. Okay, there's a place, and you and I need to go grab lunch there. Keith Grace sent me a link. It's
North Heights Discount Cafe?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've heard that they have a really good, just classic cheeseburger. If you just want classic cheeseburger.
I've heard that. I actually haven't had the cheeseburger.
Okay, then we're going to do that.
We do need to do that. I have had, there's a nachos plate you can get there that is probably about 3 pounds worth of nachos and brisket and like all kinds of stuff. It's it's a legendary place on that side of town. I feel like everybody who likes whatever kind of food, like you can find something.
I feel like this episode of Let's Talk About It should be sponsored by like Tums or Pepto-Bismol.
Pepto-Bismol.
Man, it's something else. All right, so you're going on vacation. You're getting ready to go to California. I'm on vacation. When we get back, let's go over and explore this place. So you are going, and I'm envious because it's one of the best places that I've ever been. You're getting to take a wonderful family vacation.
Yeah.
To California to go see the redwoods, and you're a self-described tree nerd.
I'm a tree nerd and a plant dad.
Okay.
My kids make fun of me because anytime we go to a new place, I have to touch a tree there. Just because, I mean, that tree's been there longer than I have, and so it's got some history to it. And so I've never been to the redwood forest, any of the redwood forests in Northern California. And so my family tends to alternate between city trips and nature trips. This year is a nature year. And everybody was on board. So we're just going to fly into Oregon, drive down the coast, go to 3 or 4 different redwood forest state parks, national parks, different things like that. I'm going to hug a lot of trees. And
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
It does, right?
You know we're Amarillo people because we travel for trees.
Like what kind of tree you got?
I just want to see
some
some trees.
What are you dealing with?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm jealous because I'm a West Coast. I've vacationed on the East Coast. I've vacationed on the West Coast. I'm definitely West Coast. Been to Oregon. I think that's it's an underrated state. Like in terms of the trees and in terms of the golf. Oregon is beautiful, and then Northern California is just spectacular. So Caden is helping us out with this. I'm going to tell you something. I was talking with Jason over lunch. We were devouring a Tank's burger, and he gave me a bit of advice. You said I'm going to Italy, and you said what are some of the things that I need to do? And you do this in every town that you go to. As well,
especially in Europe.
Yeah,
probably not every town.
Yeah, because that would be weird. But in Europe,
yeah, you go to the churches, obviously.
Right.
There's a big
That's
cathedral.
Not weird at all. That
always walk
normal.
in.
That sounds
if it's a small church, always walk in.
Caden, wait for it. Here's the kicker.
Go to the graveyards. Cemeteries are some of my favorite places to visit, especially in nations and cities that are older than the United States, because they're these repositories of history. Everybody buries their dead in different ways. Yeah. Depends on the bedrock of the ground. It depends on how much rain there is, all that kind of stuff.
Not a lot of burying going on in Venice.
No, there's not. I've been on an island in the Gulf of Mexico that is like, this limestone thing, and they can't dig into that. And so everybody's just kind of stacked up like that. And so, you can tell a lot about the culture of a city and the people and the religious traditions and all that stuff by observing how they bury their dead.
Okay.
So I love to stand in front of a gravestone, and you can kind of make out the numbers, and it says 1643, and you're like, well, that's been there longer than the United States has existed. Yeah. There's something I think that's really, thought-provoking about that, that you can't go anywhere in Europe that's not way, way older than everything I've known for all of my life. That's why it's good to travel. I think it's good to travel and experience new cultures and places like that.
I'll have to add that to when I'm out of the country, I normally want to have the beer of that country. And a lot of when we went to Paris, I was drinking beer that was older than the United States. Like they've been brewing it.
Yeah. Probably made by Trappist monks or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So I'm going to be doing that, checking out. I would have never thought about that cemeteries, but fascinating.
I mean, if you're at a cathedral, chances are there's a cemetery pretty close by. If not that, there's a crypt underneath the cathedral that maybe you can get into. Sometimes they're closed off, but cathedral crypts are really cool.
All right, I'll have to try that because I love going to cathedrals, and my wife loves art. So we're going to look at a lot of art. We're going to do a lot of those things, and so that's some good advice there. All right, so do me a favor. Go get the new, and I have to cut this off short because anytime Jason and I talk, we can sit here and go, 100%.
Usually it's 3 minutes. I'm just like,
I know. So Jason comes in once a week, and we do an interview for Studio 4, and it's always really great. But I always am like, man, there's so much I wanted to continue talking to him about. And so that's why, as a matter of fact, it's a true story. I bribed him with a burger. We're going to do this, and then we're going to go in and pre-tape one of our Studio 4 episodes talking about Brick Elm. But we wanted to knock out a few birds with this stone. Jason, I feel like I could interview you for 3 hours and probably still not get there. But I can't get through if I can't listen to a 3-hour podcast, I'm not going to make somebody else listen to my jabbering for 3 hours.
I always started getting antsy when we crossed like the 45-minute mark on a podcast. Because I was like, how am I going to wrap this thing up? This person won't stop talking.
All right, so this is not the last time that you're going to hear from Jason because they do so many wonderful things with Brick Elm. I'm going to try to get you in here regularly, maybe just to go over magazines and articles that you guys are working on and whatever
Cemetery
projects.
updates.
Cemetery updates. I'm going to give you an update. So I'm going. Jason's going on vacation to the West Coast. I'm going to go hang out in Italy for a little bit, and then I'll be back, and we'll have to regroup and go over there, have a burger, and kind of get caught up. Jason, thank you for everything that you've done for Amarillo. Thank you for giving us Hey Amarillo. All of your sharing your creativity. I know how passionate you are about this community, and I know how passionate you are about people and caring for people, and sharing stories. So just do me a favor, continue to do that.
I'll do my best.
All right, Jason, thanks for hanging out.